feel it.
Looks like we're on.
Oh, it's like, oh,
It's
live.
live.
Live with live. I feel like this is one of those instances where you could say the word live like 100 times in the night, or even like more than
Maybe
more than
more,
100
yeah.
times.
Yeah.
But it'll all be like in different contexts. It'll just be like, here's live. Now we're live. And now we are live. I see us on YouTube. So hi to everyone who has joined us. Welcome to the user group meetup for the Ableton user group in New York City. We are having our June edition meetup, and maybe we'll just give a couple of seconds for everyone to kind of catch up with the delay of the stream. But hi everyone. I'm also going to type into the chat. Hi everyone on YouTube. Hey. We're so happy that you can join us. And we are also happy to have a couple of people with us in Zoom. So just as a heads up, everyone, if you ever want to be in the same Zoom room as us for future user group meetups, feel free to RSVP at 343labs.com. And on that note, the usual host of the meetups in the New York City, or for the New York City group, rather, now we're all kind of online in our way, is 343 Labs. And we are a school based in Manhattan, usually, when we're all in person. Now we're all kind of online. But 343 Labs, we usually do a lot of music production lessons with different kinds of software like Logic, Ableton Live, maybe Bitwig in the future, who knows. Lots of different interesting types of topics, including production, songwriting, synthesis, sound design, mixing, and mastering. And we have a lot of offerings, and we'd love for you to check them out at 343labs.com if you're interested. My name's Claire, and I'm one of the instructors at 343 Labs. I'm an Ableton Certified Trainer, and I've also been kind of hosting the previous user groups that we've been doing. So to that end, if anyone wants to kind of say where they're watching from, oh yay, greetings from sunny Florida. Someone's in Florida. Oh, it's Dave. Great. Hello, Dave. Hi, everyone. I guess most of us, or at least a good number of us, are probably watching from New York, since this is the New York user group. But we do have a lot of really great presenters lined up tonight. We have our usual three, and we have one of them also in the YouTube chat with us, Illicit Ghost. We have Illicit Ghost, we have Andres Leon, and we have Rishab Rajan, all here tonight to present to us on some really great topics related to Ableton products, spanning things from live performance to production, to breakdowns of techniques that you can use related to Ableton Live, and to anything related to Ableton in general. Oh, yay, cool. See a couple of other people just popping in. The numbers jumped up a little bit. Welcome everyone who's just joined in. Again, this is the New York Ableton user group. Feel free to spread the YouTube link around, get your friends to join in, get your mom or your dad, your cat to watch with you. Cats love synths, so that's always great. But get them to join in, jump on in the boat. Otherwise, on that note, maybe let's kick off today. Let's start off with our very first presentation. We have her in the chat on YouTube, Illicit Ghost. I'm going to let her video speak for itself, but Illicit Ghost, I got to know her through a show that we once did together. She's an amazing multi-instrumentalist and producer, performer, plays amazing violin stuff. I love her sound, I love her aesthetic, so it's really an honor to have her here tonight with all of us. And she's not in the Zoom at the moment, but she does have an amazing video that she's created. So let's see if I can show this with all of you. Let's do this. And yeah, please give some virtual hand claps for Illicit Ghost. Here is her presentation that she's going to share with us about finding your sound in Ableton Live.
Hi everyone, I'm Illicit Ghost. I'm really happy to be here today presenting for you. I want to thank 343 Labs for having me, and I also want to thank Claire for inviting me on. So I'm a producer, violinist, songwriter, and performer. I write and produce music for other artists, but I mostly write and produce for myself. My process involves a lot of experimentation, so I'll start with a sound that inspires me, and that's usually chosen at random. I'll just click and drag sounds onto a track. If I like it, I keep it. If I don't like it, but I think it can be worked with, I use it and I manipulate it with effects until it makes me feel something. So sometimes I'll only have one effect on the chain, but other times I can have a lot. It's just all based on feeling. So then once I find that sound, I find chords that I like and I'll start recording vocal ideas over it. And then I start producing the song out. So experimentation is how I create my own personal sound. It's a balancing act. I have to be aware of the overall sonic landscape of my project. I've had to learn to trust my aesthetic instincts, stick with them when it feels right. And yeah, this process, it's intuitive for me. It's based on freedom because I'm an independent artist and I do not have to present a product to a record label in the hopes that they like it. I can just deliver my own sound and message. So today I'm going to play the first verse and chorus of an unreleased song of mine called Halftime. I select the sounds I use based on the meaning behind the lyrics and also the feeling. So after we listen, I'm going to dive into why I chose these sounds. So here is Halftime. Your fuel is running low. You can't take all of mine. Been on and off the road. Fill it up or quit at halftime. You're always fumbling, and it's become a pattern. But you don't play to win. Don't give it up, don't quit at halftime. And I used to live with my head on the floor, screaming and kicking to even the score. You don't even gotta play to win. So are you stepping up to stand in? So that's Halftime. So I started this song with a synth. It's an Arturia plugin. I'll solo and play it for you. So that's the sound that I ended up with after I added these effects. But before that, it sounded like this. And I just didn't like it. I thought it was a little too harsh, so I added a filter, flanger, reverb. So this sound, to me, was sad, but also had an uplifting feeling to it. So that made me feel inspired to write this song. And this song is about not giving up when something becomes too hard. So I was trying to communicate that sentiment through sound. I also wanted it to feel hopeful. So here's another sound that I used in the verse. So this is the same plugin, the same synth that I used above, but I messed around with the filter a little bit more. So you can hear that it started like this. It was too harsh, so I added a filter, flanger, and this time an echo. So for me, this sound evoked the same feeling that sometimes you get after you cry. You feel a release. So I thought the sound was perfect for that. In the chorus, I'm going to show you the piano sound that I used. So it started as this. It was like just feeling a little bit too normal for me. So I added a chorus to give it like a bit of a darker and nostalgic sound. And then I'll show you the bass that I used here. So the bass is 3 sounds grouped together. So I'll solo the group first so you can hear the whole thing. So we'll start with this one. So sometimes I just label the sound like whatever word comes to mind. So when I heard this sound, well, when I created it, it was sad. That's the original sound. I thought it was too harsh. For these other 2 bass sounds, I actually kept them as they are. I didn't add any effects to them because I really like that. And that's the 3rd one. So then together. It sounded right to me, so I decided to trust myself. So I'll also show you this other synth that's in the chorus. It's the same sound as the synths that I showed you from the verse. I'm gonna solo it and play it for you. And now, just so you can hear it in context.
And I used to live with my head on the floor.
So I added the synth because I wanted to give the chorus more definition. I only kept a filter and a flanger on this one. You can hear how it sounded originally. So yeah, it was too much for me. So, and also you can play around with this. You know, it can make the sound very different, but I found it was best right about there. I can move this around too. So I'm a violinist and I record the violins myself, and I'll show you what I do with them. So for this part that's after the chorus, I'll just play it for you again.
Are you stepping up to stand in? You don't have to.
So let me solo them. So that's with effects. I'll show you how they started. Here's the first one. And here's the second one. So I grew up playing in orchestras and playing classical music, and you know, after a while it gets to be pretty tedious, and I decided when I started making music that I didn't want to just use the traditional sound, I wanted to mess with it a little bit and make it unique. So for these, I added a chorus, and I'll put the effects on as they come. So.
You don't have to borrow.
So it just, for me, evoked that feeling of just sadness, but hopefulness. So yeah, that's why I used those effects for my violins. So that's pretty much how I do it. You know, a lot of experimentation. I'll just go through. I'll drag effects onto a track until it sounds how I want it to sound, how I want it to feel. Also, I just want to say that keeping your track organized as you're writing and producing is really important. I don't know if you noticed, but like I color code everything. So like the MIDI, this is just pink because I was singling it out so I could show you guys, but it's usually purple for MIDI, and then this like bluish color for vocals, and then green for violins. And it just kind of helps me, like as I'm going along, I know where my violins are, where my vocals are, and where my MIDI instruments are. And also, it's important to label, because eventually this session is going to go to a mixer, and you want to be as organized as possible so that they don't have to sort through all your tracks. You have to group them, label them, just keep it organized. So yeah, that's how I do it. Thank you guys for listening and watching. Thank you 343 Labs for having me. Really excited to do this and connect with you guys. If you have any questions, let me know. If you don't want to ask right now, feel free to reach out to me. I am on Instagram as @illicitghost. I also have an EP coming out this year. It's my first EP, so pretty excited for that. And if you want to check out some of my other stuff, I host an anti-anxiety hour on Saturdays on Instagram Live. It's usually at 7 p.m. You check that out. The past episodes are on Instagram TV. I interview artists that are on my Spotify playlist. It's called Anti-Anxiety on Spotify. Check it out. And yeah, thank you guys for being here, and looking forward to answering any questions.
Yay! So let's give it up for Emily, everyone, or Illicit Ghost. Sorry, I call her Emily, but I'm gonna go back to a frame in the video where we can see her talk about stuff. Does anybody? I'm also gonna start my video again. Does anyone have any questions for Emily? I actually did have a question that I just asked Emily while we're waiting for more questions. If anyone does have questions, ooh, we also got some thank yous from the Zoom. So thank you, Emily. I'm gonna type into that. Thank you in the chat. But yeah, I did have a question for Illicit Ghost, and I asked Illicit Ghost, is this the usual way that you work in terms of writing first and then production later? Because I feel like a lot of singers or songwriters or even producers who are starting out, I feel like a big question is usually, what do we start with? Is it more appropriate, or is it quote unquote normal, or the way things are done to start with writing first and then production? So that was my question. Is it the usual way that Illicit Ghost works, writing first and then production? And how do you decide kind of what workflow is good for you? And I loved how also Illicit Ghost mentioned how she, the rationale behind a lot of things that she does. I think it's really great to hear about that too. So Illicit Ghost responded, yes, I usually do the writing, then base the production around the feeling and the lyrics. And I think that kind of spoke to the halftime title of this track also, which I'm so excited to be released. It sounds amazing. And then she also added, sometimes the sound that, I need to move this window so I can see these things, all the Zoom windows happening. Cool. Sometimes the sound that, what is saying here? Cool. The sound that I start with informs the lyrics though, so it's a bit of both. So a little bit of the sound kind of affecting the production, the words in the lyrics, and then vice versa. That's really cool. And it's interesting to also kind of see specific references to sections that illustrate both of that in this presentation. So that was really awesome. Again, if anyone has questions, feel free to either leave it on YouTube in the YouTube chat if you're watching from YouTube, or if you're with us in the Zoom room, feel free to also type that into the chat here. And also the great thing about the folks who are with us in Zoom is if you do want to unmute yourself at some point and or ask a question in the chat, we're happy to take that question live as well. Otherwise, maybe I do have one more question, and there might be a little bit of delay with this question getting to Illicit Ghost in the YouTube chat. But I feel like for a lot of people who are maybe this is more of a question that a couple of us in the other presenters could also answer, but is having some kind of training really, does it really help you be an electronic music producer? I feel like it's a lot of a debatable question. So maybe I'm gonna retype this question into the chat on YouTube, but maybe we could even have our other presenters in the Zoom with us offer their thoughts. I love to hear what Andres and Rishab think about what it means to have training, because I think like actually all of the presenters, and even myself included, me as the host, like all of us have some kind of musical background, but I feel like a lot of people who are interested in getting into this don't necessarily have that background. So I'm gonna unmute Andres and Rishab for a second if they let me unmute them. And I'd love to hear from y'all also.
Sure. Well, I don't know. I mean, I feel like every person has their own path, and I've seen people doing incredible music without any official music, training or music school. Uh, when music, it's a lot about having an art in general. It's about having like a sensibility to, you know, listen carefully or hear things that other people cannot hear. Um, so it's not like you have to. But personally, for me, it has helped a lot because not just only learning theory and learning stuff like that, but just the fact that like when you're like part of some institutions of group of people, when you're learning, uh, or even when you're studying by yourself, there's so many things you discover that other people is doing that like kind of like open up um, lots of open your imagination, open some of the things that you might want to encounter and like you haven't been able to do it by yourself. So I think both are really valuable, but personally, maybe I wouldn't have been able to do what I do now without training. But it's pretty subjective.
Yeah, that's a great point. Awesome. Rashab, I'm wondering what you think.
Yeah. So I would also agree with Andreas. It really is amazing how today you have musicians who have absolutely no training whatsoever in music and create some of the best music out there. And I would say mainly talking about electronic music production, mainly, and there are exceptions as well. But having said that, having some training would also be helpful. I myself went through schooling for music. It's also a very specific path that you can take, and you can learn in a very proper way, as opposed to just figuring things out on your own. That might be a longer process for some people. Some people might prefer having guidance, and that can kind of help to learn. But yeah, going back to this idea of you don't really need that. You don't need that training in order to create really, really good music. I believe, give you a few examples in the EDM domain. Deadmau5 is probably a pretty big name. He does some pretty interesting music, really interesting harmony, and he has no idea what he's doing, right? On his label, there's another producer named Mr. Bill, does incredibly amazing jazzy music, and he has no training in jazz whatsoever. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe even if we go back in time to, let's say, when the Beatles were around, I believe they didn't have
Right.
training too. They just did stuff, and after they did stuff, people who had background in music, they kind of analyze their music, and then they presented, look at this amazing
Right.
stuff that the Beatles are doing. But when they were doing it, they weren't thinking about harmony and chord progressions and diatonic and non-diatonic borrowed chords and all that stuff. It just came to them naturally.
Yeah, totally. I love what you mentioned just now, Rashab, about how even the Beatles, they were just kind of noodling in their own way. Like they weren't necessarily like saying, we're gonna play major sevenths for all of these things. And I'm not sure if they've even played major sevenths like for a lot of their tunes. It could be just triads as well. But yeah, I think that's important because a lot of the time, a lot of the people who do like come to the Ableton user group stuff, I know we have a big range of experiences. Some of us have been live users who are super enthusiastic and have used live for like years, and some of us are more new to it. And I totally agree with both Rashab and Andres and a couple of other folks in the chat as well. Oh, I'm just gonna read a couple of responses that came from Illicit Ghost as well. She said, I think as a producer, it's good to know the basics so that you can build and understand structure. And I definitely agree with that too. And knowing an instrument is definitely helpful, but not absolutely necessary. So yeah, definitely, I agree with that as well. And yeah, I think on that note, though, it's really interesting to kind of see how a lot of non-electronic musicians, because even maybe thinking about the Beatles as a non-electronic kind of group, non-electronic musicians can take their existing skills and kind of put them into other contexts. For example, for in my case also, I was originally a piano and flute player, but things happened and now I like play the push or something. But it's so interesting to see this evolution in a way, and also just being able to keep reapplying the skills that you've already learned. And I love how Illicit Ghost is putting like all of her violent chops, her classical violent chops, into another medium and really making it speak for herself and her artistry. So yeah, thank you so much again, Illicit Ghost. If you're in the chat on YouTube, feel free to drop in a couple of claps, and I'm just gonna put clap 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 in the chat. And yay! Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. I'm going to also stop sharing. But yeah, thanks again, everyone, for joining us also. I'm just going to do a quick introduction for the next presenter. But we are the Ableton user group for New York City. Thanks, everyone, for joining us this evening. Hope you've been having a good day so far. It's I guess it's night for us in New York, starting to be a little bit dark in the night. But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. The 343 the user group is hosted by 343 Labs, and we're a school in Manhattan usually when we're not in lockdown. I'm like jumbling all my words. But yeah, so usually we also host the user group in person, but for the last couple of months, because of the lockdown, we've been doing this virtual user group. So we want to thank everyone for joining us virtually as well. And up next, we have, after Illicit Ghost, we have Andres Leon, and he is currently in Ecuador, Andres, but he's usually based in New York. He's a good friend of mine. Really happy to have him here. And I'm going to let him introduce himself since we have him here too. So, Andres. Ooh, I'm going to unmute you. Sorry. Hello.
Hi, hello. Thank you, Claire. Thanks, everybody. This is great. I've been watching some of the meetups you guys do, and it's always cool to see people doing their creative things. Okay, I'm gonna ask you for 1 minute because seems like we're about to connect my computer and it's about to die. Nobody wants that.
Maybe while Andres is setting up, someone can answer. There was a question in the chat in Zoom.
Sure, let's do that. Let me read it. Okay, cool. Great. Oh, Prabhat. So in the Zoom chat, just so everyone has a heads up, if you're watching on YouTube, we also do have like a mirrored Zoom thing going on. So Prabhat is based in Bangalore, India, and has spent most of his life being inclined with Indian musical notations. Awesome, cool. So a few members in his family are trained vocalists in the Carnatic tradition, and he knows that he knows very basic stuff with keys and starting with C. And he has good listening skills and can identify and sync with actual pitches. So how could someone understand and learn the equivalent of what it mostly is considered to be the global standard and to get better involved in music? I would love to answer this too, but I'm wondering if any of the other presenters want to go for it too. Like Rishab or Andres, do either of you want to maybe take a look at this since you're also in the Zoom? This could be like a pre-question for Andres.
Okay, let me read the question.
Yeah, totally. While Andres is reading, maybe I'll just speak a little bit about this. But I think a really great part about being trained and having a good ear is that you already kind of have an inclination to what sounds good, I think. And that's, to be honest, that's also the same thing that I tell a lot of students. It's like, even though you might not necessarily think of yourself as a trained musician, you've probably been listening to music for a lot of your life. And because of that, in a way, you are also a repository of a lot of the sounds that you enjoy and the sounds that you like. So I think that's a great part of being in a family also that's very musical, having that kind of background to say that, oh, I know I've been familiar with these sounds. It's not as if I'm suddenly listening to music after like 10 years of my life or 20 years not listening to it. So I think one really great way to get started is actually, if you're interested in using Ableton products specifically, there's a really great website that's called learningmusic.ableton.com that'll take you through some basic workflow about production. And that might also help you to translate a lot of the ideas that you understand from the Karnataka tradition and put it in the context of electronic music, if that's something that you're interested in. And even things like sargam and parts of the annotation that is used in Indian music is able to be applied also to other kinds of music. So, for example, if you had a scale, you would often also have a similar kind of scale and an organization of notes in the Western music tradition also. So there's a lot of parallels, and I think that's pretty interesting to go on. And Andres, what do you think?
Oh, well, this is. I wish I know less than I know about Western music, and I know more about other traditions of music, because I feel like at times it's very limited, the things we can do with what we know. So I feel like with your background, it's easier to understand Western notation and Western, rules and intonation, that, like, for us understanding yours. So there's a bunch of tools that I will also encourage to always, explore your own roots and explore. Um, we're at a time that we've gone through like so many levels of experimentation in music, and in New York, where the New York group. So let's talk about New York. 40s, 50s, 60s composers started pushing away from equal temperament, and people started to like deal with tonality and expand tonality and the concept of an octave and what does it mean to have just like whole tones or quarter tones, and just like go through like just intonation theories and stuff like that. So, and for me that's like one of the most interesting music. I'm pretty fan of like James Taney and a bunch of people like Lamont de Young that were doing like crazy stuff with like different like forms of intonation that were pretty much inspired from like non-Western traditions. So I feel like there's an electronic music is so great because there's a point where you're just like not dealing with notes anymore. Even for me that I use modulars, you have to tune these babies, and what's tuning, like if you can have all the range of frequencies, and that was something that even Europeans, Stockhausen was like trying to push away. Like like serialism was like an organization of notes, but they were like, what is in between that? What is in between this frequency and this other frequency? And there's so much richness in color in terms of like harmonic tensions in between equal temperament scales. So I'll like in electronic music you can explore that so much. And I think it's a good time for like when you talk global, I'll say like global is precisely more equal temperament music. So
Totally.
but that's just my own opinion.
No, that was great. Thanks, Andres. Rishab, did you want to add anything or?
Sure. Since I am from India, I guess I should say something. But I will agree with Claire and Andreas both. Yeah, absolutely everything they said. But just to add to something, to maybe my 2 cents to help with Prabhat. Yeah, Carnatic music is very, very complex, and depending on how deep you went into it, you probably have a very high level of musical understanding compared to if you had just studied Western music. So yeah, you're actually better off. Again, I haven't studied Carnatic music, but I can say that probably the only difference or the main thing that you will struggle with a little bit is harmony, because from my understanding in Carnatic music, harmony is not that relevant. It's more about rhythm, really, really complex rhythms, and again melodies, really, really complex melodies, and dividing an octave far beyond the 12 semitones that we are used to in Western music. Yeah, harmony is something that is very common in Western music, not so much common in Northern as well as Southern Indian music. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Awesome. Thanks, Rashab. Appreciate it. So yeah, I hope we did answer your question. That was a really great question, though. Let me just pop over to the YouTube chat and just check if everyone's still there. Oh, okay. Oh, awesome. Got a couple new folks. But yay, thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in again. Let's keep going with all the questions. Again, if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Feel free to put them on YouTube or in Zoom. But in the meantime, here is Andres. Hola.
Hola. Hi, everybody. Again, thank you for having me. I normally will be in my little medium-sized studio in Brooklyn, New York. Luckily, I have an apartment. I shared my apartment with other 2 musicians, and we have a huge basement that we were able to turn into like a nice studio. We can all use it and produce, and we have a bunch of machines and our computers, and it's nice. But I was, because of this crazy situation we're all going through, I came back to Ecuador to be with my family a little bit, and I just packed my modular and just left. So I'm in a pretty limited size little space that I like reclaim myself here. I was like, I'm gonna use this space, sorry. But as soon as like I can still be creative and work on stuff, it's amazing. And here I am. And well, I guess Claire, should I like just start breaking out a little bit?
Yeah,
What do I
totally. Go
do?
for it. Yeah.
Cool. So I'm all over the place. I do all sorts of music and like so many things that sometimes it's just like hard to focus on one thing. But something that I really like doing a lot is creating like more experimental, ambient, atmospheric music, and just like really approaching music from researching the sound materiality of it, and really like exploring sound as it is. And that ties a little bit with the question we were talking about. It's for me, creating goes far beyond harmony theory, melodic approach, rhythms, but it's more about the exploration of sound itself. So that's what I try to do. There's stuff that I do that are more like melodic and tune, and there are other stuff that is more about textures and the sound quality itself. And for me, electronic music helps you a lot to reach, these textures and these sonic elements that other instruments might not. I also love acoustic instruments, and the combination of both, bringing the acoustic to the electronic world, bringing the electronic to the acoustic world, playing a little bit around with it. And Ableton is what it hosts all of this at the end, even if it's outboard gear, soft synths, acoustic instruments, it all always end up in Ableton because it's the DAW that I like. Get more comfy in the zone of creation and making things fast, and I really like the way it's, put together. I do use other DAWs. I use Pro Tools. I try to don't use Logic at all, but I know how to. But yeah, Ableton for me is the one that it cuts. So that's the one I use. And so now I'll just like share my screen so you guys can see my Ableton session. And just a little background, what you're gonna see is like a session where like mostly all the sounds are coming from here to my interface to Ableton, and in Ableton I do some processing. and that goes out of the word. And there's some other stuff that I do inside Ableton. So let's share the screen. Let's hear some sounds. Talking too much. Okay, you guys can see this. So, just want to see people, not I feel alone. Yeah, so pretty much I have a couple tracks here. These are, I've just put the names of the main voices are coming. So DFAM is the Moog DFAM. Shapeshifter is one of my oscillators here. Pluck is one of the oscillators here. Steel is one of the oscillators here. And then I have these 3 brain tracks that are like, I love the Tom Hanke granulator. It's like the basic Max for Live granulator. As you see, I'm even using Ableton 9. And I just like use this Max for Live device a lot because I like the way it looks. I like the way that you can scan visually through like a sample and all the parameters you can manipulate with it. So I have 3 instances of it. And then I have a little sample that I put some processing. So let's hear the different voices, and then I'll talk a little bit about my approach in the modular and then how like Ableton receives that and deals with it, okay? So here I have one voice. Let me know if you're hearing it well. Does it need to be louder or?
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. So one sound. It's really stereo, but I don't think you're getting the stereo feel of it. I have another one. Is it on? It will come eventually. I will explain later. I do a lot of generative music, so I know what's going on, but I'm also letting my machine surprise me. And in this case, it's not surprising me. Here I have another voice, more like a plucky guitar kind of thing. See, sometimes comes, sometimes not. There it goes. Then I have these kind of like a lead, melodic, little edgy. And then let me show you what I get from Granulator. So I play with this, and so this is like a big sample. I sampled it from vinyl to Ableton, and then I took that sample. I'm not gonna say the original sample, where's it coming from? It's a secret. But I'm pretty much taking like a little, like if I go to the file position, this is the file position right here. And I'm just like getting the grain really slow. And it sprays, so like it goes within those boundaries, and I spread it so it gets like a nice stereo feel. And then I use my keyboard. In this case, I'm using my computer keyboard to like play it. And I can, you know, always make it the grain size like shorter and shorter. So I use these a lot. I love the way it's so organic, and like it's kind of like, yeah, it's really organic. It's not that mechanic. The way like it shifts the grains and it just like scatter a sound and like made it really alive. So I use a bunch of those. Let me see what I have here. Wait, I need to. Oh, here I have some. This is something I like to do a lot. I have some springs going on. So it's maybe just like a noise that has like a little pingy noise. And then I'm using Max for Live device. I love Max for Live devices. This convolution reverb Max for Live, and I'm using the like the spring reverb um, you know, impulse response, springs, and then I just like a little bit of EQ, find the right decay and size, and I can have those like nice little um, sprinkles. Um, and then out of band to create some stereo feel, I'll put the filter and use the LFO to kind of like bring this in and out. So if I like just I'm playing and I put the hold on granulator and I play a note and I just stop playing it, it's holding forever, it's there, it's in a sound, but I don't want it there to be forever. So I use the filter that smoothly faded out and faded in for me. I love not doing much. I love setting up things and then listen and then react with small gestures and listen back. That's why I use generative concepts in the modular. I'll talk about that later. But things like these, just like holding a key on the granulator, let it play for me, and then use auto filter to like bring it in and bring it out. I'm gonna talk about tempo also because I normally don't clock these things. I like them be really out of sync. For this kind of music, I'm never on the grid, no grids. But yeah, and let's move on with like a couple the last sounds. Let me unhold this so it's out. Bye. And what do I have here? If I play this one. It's really soft. Oh, you hear it? It's a little some just like getting some.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love noise and I love those kind of like noisy textures. So again, it's all coming from the same sample, just like different file positions from the same sample. So this is probably just binaural noise. And I use a outer pan and a phaser to give it a little bit more of airiness and deepness. And that's pretty much it in terms of the tracks I'm using, for example, to create this piece. Some other things I'll do, and, I'm almost done, bear with me. For example, this track with the, what was it here? The little springs. Let me go to it and take the filter off, that's cool. So you hear it. I do this send thing where I love this trick. I use corpus in a chain. So I send sounds to corpus to like, I love physical modeling kind of stuff. So I have the marimba thing here. And this is why corpus is so great because it will like start giving me little melodies without me doing anything. Can you hear the little bells? So I have an LFO in random because I love randomness, controlling a little bit of, the pitch of the marimba itself. And then I just like fine tune these until I find what I like. And I have, a little bit of EQ. Our filters are pretty great. Our crystallizer gives me a little bit more of the high pitch stuff. More sound toys is great too. I love sound toys. More delay, and at the end, some reverb. So as you see, it's like a lot about finding textures and little things that are there, kind of like drawn in, but like, I think it catches my ear's attention. It's like, well, what's there? I don't really feel it. It's not in my face, but it's like putting me in certain state of mind sensations. So I use that a lot, like this chain with corpus as a send. So like in any voice I'm taking, let's use another voice. for example. Let's take this out. This one, for example. By the way, this is my modular going and using this free plugin. Everybody should get it. Oh, super massive, beautiful delay. It has a nice spread, kind of like density that like gives a little bit of like rigor sort of feeling, and you can modulate the delay. And this is a really slow delay. So like if I take it out, this is what is coming from the synth. Just like a little melody. You put it back in and now you have like, it starts making like a harmonic thing. It starts like, because of the melodies are repeating with a really short delay, it starts like overlapping one on top of each other. Pretty Brian Eno sort of stuff. Super long delays that they're just like keep going. And you know, it creates this like cloud of melodies that becomes like the harmony sort of the whole thing. But also if I send this to Corpus, start getting the bells. So like Melody Maker. These are some of like the main tricks I do with Ableton. That's why I love Ableton. It's so simple, so effective. And then from one last thing I wanted to talk about is, and I let this as a kind of like the background from the talk, is tempo, about the decisions of like syncing or not syncing things. One of the greatest thing about Ableton is how you can like be so like synced and like do things, you know, even if you sync another computer, you're like right on the grid and you can add some swing and whatever, but you're like always there. You have the quantization, you know, triggers, and it allows you to really create like really complex performances that like never goes out of sync, and it's always, everything is where it has to be. And I love that. And I love that about Ableton. And also produce techno and more dance music, and I'll use more of that. But I'm also, you know, I come from a music background where I was playing acoustic instruments, and I sometimes miss that when I'm doing electronic music. So I'm trying to like go through like the organic side of electronic music too a lot, and sometimes not using sync and not having everything in like a certain rhythm or syncing. For me, it's really important too. So like I eyeballed the tempo here. I was hearing the melody I created in the modular, and I kind of like did like, I just tap and I just did that. So I have sort of like a notion of time, so I can set up the delay time that I put it in. It's not synced to I just put 2000 milliseconds, but it's sort of 55 BPM. And you know, it's not tight, it's pretty free, but within a balance. And same with the modular, like I can have everything really synced, and my LFOs that are modulating other stuff really be on sync. Sometimes I do that because I want like a rhythmic relationship in between things, but sometimes I just like fine tune it by ear and see how it feels, and not basing on any grid or any time constraints. So those are some of the things I do to create my music and to like make my sounds. And yeah, feel free to ask me any questions, and hope you enjoy.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Andres. Super beautiful. We actually had a very interesting question that maybe yeah, I like to throw it out as I think you might have mentioned this, but for this particular setup, are you mostly using it for composition or performance? And maybe that's kind of related to another question that was, let me just find the question in the chat. We had a question that said, so we haven't seen arrangement view. Do you record stuff in as audio, or do you trigger MIDI, or what do you do in session? And if you ever use arrangement, what do you do with that?
There it is. Well, now it's empty. It's just waiting for me to record. And I create this. This is coming out of another session when I did a composition, and you know, if you go to session view, you will see the recording. And then of course I'll like edit and mix and move things around. So arrangement view, like, great for that, of course. Um, but so yeah, this I mainly compose. I do perform. I feel like I perform all so much during my like days as bassist, and that I for a little bit was tired of carrying things around, and I was like, I'm just gonna do a studio practice, and now I'm kind of doing both. But I will say like my performances now are a little bit more on the experimental side, on the gallery kind of things. I just did like a 12 channel performance, but like just the modular. I sent it to like 12 speakers and did some like cool, really long performance, not like track by track or just like a one large piece or things like that. I like long compositions. Um, but I can use it's a hybrid, I would say, because when I compose my process, let me talk about a little bit of my composition.
Yeah, go for it.
process. I will like sit down, in this case particularly, because there's some other approaches. I will sit down with the machine and I will like have an idea in mind, or sometimes I don't have any idea. And I'll just like start patching an oscillator and like saying, okay, maybe I want to use this scale today, or just want to tune it and hear how it sounds. And I just start experimenting and moving things around until like I find the sounds. It's all about the sound. So like I fine tune things until I find sounds that are compelling to me. And then I start like working, okay, what other sound will work well with this sound? And that's how like I start like, adding tracks and see like, okay, how many things, what am I missing? Oh, I'm missing some of that like little noisy thing. Okay, so I'm gonna do that. I kind of want a melody, so I'm gonna, patch something, sound design something, you know? And then when like, I didn't talk much about this, but like I use a lot of randomness and those like generative concepts. So like I have a couple modules, and Ableton is great on that too, because you have a lot of like MIDI tools and Max for Live tools that allow you to use randomness to create chords, to create melodies, to create beats. It's all about how you use it. In this case, I'm using the modular. With the corpus example, I was using Ableton to create some random melodies to me too. So like, it's about fine tuning and constraining the randomness, because I don't want like completely randomness, because completely randomness is boring. It's boring. Like, it tends to be, randomness could get really repetitive in the randomness. So trying to like constrain my randomness to, allow it to like give me new things here and there, but in within like some limits. So that's what I do when I have a patch set up in the module like that already, without me doing much or doing anything at all. It's giving me music that is pleasant to me. That's when I'm like, okay, so now what do I do with this? And that's what I will like press record and start, letting the voices come in and out, perform, moving a filter, moving a little parameter that will like open or make things more brighter or duller. And I do a couple takes. Sometimes I do one take and I'm good with it. So sometimes I just do like 10 and I'm not good with any, and I just like throw my modular away. No, never do that. But, it's about that, it's about fine tuning things, making the sounds work by themselves without any intervention of myself, and then performing. So the composition itself is a performance. So like when performing and recording that, I can do it live too. So it's kind of like a hybrid setup where I'm like using it mainly for composition, but my composition is really I cannot even say it, but I improvise. I make takes. I was talking about how like the humanity of things, and so I make takes, and then that will like be recorded on this view, and then I will hear if there's something I didn't like, if there's like a little sound it was too loud, I will like put a compressor, I will mix it, I will tame it, I will cut it, I will erase it. So I do go some post-production after. I'm trying to like leave things that they are, to like let that organic feeling go through, but there's when like, I use both sessions. But when I'm recording, I have this session handy because I want to see the levels. I want to like throw that send in and bring the bells. So yeah, that I think that will answer that question, right?
Yeah, totally. That was awesome. I also love the corpus stuff. That's really beautiful. I'm so glad that you talked about it. It was so nice. I
It's
think maybe,
magical.
yeah, totally. One thing that I'm curious about, Andres, is, and I know a little bit of the answer, but I think a couple of other folks might be interested too. You were also mentioning, how even within Live, you can kind of do a lot of modular types of things with Macs for live devices, things like that. So in that case, what made you want to decide to start using a modular if you could also do certain things in Live?
Yeah, um, that's always a question that I think everybody that uses outboard gears or modular gets. Like, well, why do you use all that expensive gear if Ableton can do everything or Logic can do everything? Hey, Logic. Okay, so um, I think for me, it started with like kind of like seeing other people using it. Like I was like a pretty uh, big fan of like craft rock, the German,
Right.
space rock, and like just seeing, you know, videos of Pink Floyd and recording The Dark Side of the Moon and using these big scenes with cables and knobs and twisting knobs and getting like, these incredible sounds that were like so like out of the normal for me back when I was like 16, 17. Like, wow, this is so cool. I want to touch that. I want to see how that works. Um, and of course, then like I studied a little bit of production and I started using the AWs. And I, it's funny, but I started when I was like 17 or 18 using Reason 3 or 4. That's how old I am. And then, Reason has the scenes and you can twist the knobs and patch things. And that was already exciting for me. Even though it was on the computer, I was like sound designing and twisting knobs and open a filter and hearing the opening of the filter. And then when I went to Berkeley, where I met Claire and Rishab was there too, he's a professor there. Uh, we're very lucky that we have a bunch of scenes and a bunch of modulars and a bunch of machines, and we have classes that are like, since the first class on our major, on the electronic production major, you go like, okay, use this, touch it, understand how it works. And it was just automatically I felt in love. And the fact that I was like opening the filter, I was opening on Reason with my mouse pad, with a real knob, and just like knowing that I was like taking voltage and electricity out from one place to the other and another. It was just felt so organic to me and it felt so good. And it sounds different. I'm not saying it sounds better or it sounds bad, but like digital sounds digital, analog sounds analog. I also have digital modules here, and everything is amazing. Everything is good. Um, but I was super inclined into that world, and like it's about the totality of it. How like I can, you know, do things, grab things, pull a cable out, twist a knob, and those sort of things I don't feel that much when using controllers or using Ableton. Um, so I rather use either acoustic instruments or acoustic anything that makes sound, and I'll sample that and put tons of delay, and you'll have the most beautiful atmosphere. And or just this, that it's also more tactile and like it has a flow, and it also have limitations. And I like limitations. I like not having 20 million tracks. I like doing simple things as like moving this and getting bells out of it. I just love that. And it might be that I'm lazy, but it does it for me. So yeah, that's why I use modular, and that's why I use scenes, and that's why I use outward.
Yeah,
Because
no,
I
it
feel
sounds
like
beautiful.
I can express myself in ways that like in the computer I would not be able to. But the
Totally. And
computer
yeah.
is a key tool. The computer is a key tool.
Yeah, no, totally. Thanks so much for sharing and shedding so much light on that, Andres. I think a lot of people are always curious, like when you use a software like Live that's meant for live stuff and then also for production, like how do you actually marry that? And I think you made a really great case for how to bridge that gap between like the physical world and the not so physical world. So thank you so much for presenting. Give Andres a round of applause, everyone, if you're in the chat or if you're on YouTube. I'm gonna type in some claps also. Claps. And
Thank
yeah,
you,
thanks so much, Andres.
Astonishing.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. Thanks so much for doing that, Andres. Really appreciate it. Once again, everyone, thanks for tuning in to the New York Ableton user group. We are here on the greater internet, or we are kind of in this virtual space, I guess. We're on Zoom for a couple of people who are in Zoom, and a couple of us are also on YouTube. So thanks for our YouTube friends for hanging out. The Ableton user group for the New York side is usually hosted by 343 Labs. So that's kind of where all of us are, or where all most of us are from. But we're from the 343 Labs community. Yay, we got a bunch of claps for Andres, clapping for Andres in the YouTube chat too. But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. We have one more presenter tonight. Very excited to have him present shortly. Rishab Rajan's going to join us and start talking about some interesting looping techniques that we're going to use. So welcome, Rishab. Claps for Rishab. I'm going to yeah, yay. Hi, Rishab.
Hello, hello.
Hi. Yeah, put your
Thank
hands
you.
together, everyone. Please welcome Rishab.
Yay.
Yay.
I don't hear
Awesome.
anything. All right.
No problem.
So should I just go for it?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, cool. So yeah, so what I was going to do today is, or what I'm going to do today is, oh, there's spotlight. Okay. So I'm going to talk about this one Max for Live device called the Bink Looper. So if you follow Ableton's website or on social media, you may have seen Bink Beats, his composer, live performer. I believe he's Dutch or European. So he does these really fantastic live looping performances, and he basically put out his main device that he uses for live looping. So yeah, I watched that video like a lot of people, and like a lot of people. So he also explained how the device works, and he said, okay, you can go and download it from my website. So I watched the video where he explains how the device works, and it didn't make any sense to me. It's like really complicated. So I figured, okay, I should just spend some time and really figure out how does this thing work. Because I also noticed in the comments in YouTube, like everybody's like, this is awesome, but I have no idea how this works. It's like pretty complicated stuff.
It's so interesting because like I think I know which video you're talking about, Rishab, and I was watching it too. And I felt the exact same way, and I feel like a lot of people were just so like dazzled, but also really, really confused. Like no one really knew even after the explanation what it was
like
doing.
What it does, yeah. And
so
I was
really excited, yeah.
I was in the same boat, and I just put myself in that position. I need to figure this out. So I sat down with it. It comes with a little manual, but it's just one document that just has like a sentence or two on each like aspect of it. So there's a video of him explaining his live setup. Yeah, that whole video, he explains his whole live setup. He explains, how all his different, he has like, I don't know, 32 different inputs on his interface. There's a lot of live audio looping, so he has all these percussive things. And he doesn't do, I believe he doesn't do anything in 4/4. It's all in like weird time signature. Bink Beats. Should probably type it in here. Oh, there you go. Claire did that already. So yeah, check him out. Very inspiring. Just watching him, even if you're not into this stuff, it was just inspiring to listen to him talk about his music and just listen to his music. So yeah, so let's. So I guess I should start. So what I'm going to do is I have an instrument here. It's just a ukulele. I'm going to plug it in. So what I'm going to do now is share my screen. And if any of this again doesn't make sense, feel free to just pop in a question, because when I'm sharing my screen, I won't see the comments and stuff, but maybe Claire can just interrupt me and I can
totally.
answer any question, because it might be tricky. Like after 20 minutes, you might forget, like, wait, what was the question again?
Got it.
Yeah. So, all right. So this session, it's a pretty much an empty session, your default live session. I do have this drum kit loaded in here just as a reference to play something too. I mean, I guess you could just play with the metronome, which would be nice to have some kind of beat. Let me know if the signal is too soft or loud or whatever. I have an audio track here.
It's a tiny bit hot, I think. Just a little bit loud.
Right? Yeah, I felt that kit is pretty. I love that kit, but it's a bit too loud.
That's awesome.
Okay, yeah. It's called the Equinox kit. This is a very cool hip hop style kick. Might be too soft now.
Tiny bit soft, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good, I think.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you know what? Let's do this. Let's just do a quick beat here, just as a reference. Again, like I said, you can just play to a click. But let's see if that would sound decent. Yeah, kind of keep it slow because I'm not much of a performer. Let's even slow down the tempo. It's 120. Let's do 110. All right, so have a little beat here. Now, I have my instrument plugged in my audio interface. It's selected as a device in live. You can see here 2 inputs. The second one is the microphone. I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use this first one here. So when I'm playing on my ukulele, you can see activity here, and I'm going to arm the track, and you can hear it. Have the reverb send and the delay send up as well. No sparkly bells though. I'm not using the corpus, but yeah, you could use that. All right, so how does this work? So I'm just you won't see this, but once you download the pack, it's like a really small file, zip file, downloaded. It comes with 2 devices. Excuse me. There's a MIDI version and then there's an audio version. So if you want to do audio live looping, you load the audio device. If you want to do MIDI live looping, you load the other one. So since I'm going to do audio stuff, I'm going to drag this onto this audio track here, which has my ukulele connected. And this is what it looks like. It looks very simple, but it's like pretty, I would say, fairly complicated. So this is the device. All right, so how does this work? Now, you don't have to use a device like this to do live looping. I mean, Ableton Live is probably one of the best tools for live looping without any additional, third-party plugins and stuff like that. But if you want to have that hands-off experience, like when you're playing an instrument, that's why I showing you, giving you a demo with the ukulele. Your hands are busy playing an instrument. Your hands are not free to hit buttons, select menu options and stuff like that. So this is a great device for something like that. You all probably know about the Push device. Claire is like the master of the Push. So that that device. One of my favorite features on the Push is that what is it called? Fixed length. Is it called fixed length? Yeah, fixed length, where you tap that button and then you can predefine how many bars to record. So you can say, okay, I want to record 4 bars. So you hit the record button and you start playing. As soon as you're done with 4 bars, it'll start playing back whatever you just recorded. So that's great. So you don't have to, hit a button and then start playing and then hit a button as soon as you're done. Kind of like a looper pedal. For a looper pedal, you'll have to do it twice. So with a looper pedal, you could use your feet. So let me show you how this works. I'm just gonna myself some room. So let's set this up first. So that's the device. Now, how does it work? We need to load in a clip onto the track which has a Bink Looper. So this is an audio clip, so I need to load a clip. It doesn't matter what that clip has. It's not going to make any sound. It's just going to sit there to do stuff for us. It's going to trigger automation and do different things. So blonde in boots, okay. So I don't know why that was selected. Okay, so I load that in. This we don't even have to listen to it. It doesn't matter what it sounds like. In fact, let's bring the volume all the way down, because when I'm going to trigger it, but I don't want to hear the sound in it, right? I'm going to use it to trigger aspects of the Bink Looper, but not to hear blondes in boots. Yeah, so let's make sure the volume is down. I'm also going to turn on warping. Because we're going to access all that automation stuff, and warping doesn't work. Automation stuff doesn't work if warping is off. I'm also going to turn off loop. It was off by default because this is just like a one shot. But if you drag in some kind of a loop or something that the loop feature might be on, so make sure to turn that off. Because what I'm going to do with this clip is when I launch this clip, it's going to trigger the recording features in Bink Looper, and if this clip is looping, it's going to trigger it again and again and again, and that might interrupt your performance. So make sure looping is off. All right, so that's done. Loop is off, warp is on, volume is down, all the way down. Does it go any lower? Oh, there you go. Negative infinity. Ensure that it doesn't make any noise. And then over here, there's a little L thing here. It's kind of a hidden thing by default. If you click on L, we have some additional features related to this particular clip. There's a quantization feature. So Ableton has this global launch quantization up top here, which you can set depending on how you want to trigger your clips or trigger your recordings. I leave that at 1 bar, but this one I need to turn off, right? Or basically set to none, because I want to be able to trigger this anytime I want. Yeah, so maybe just before the beginning of the downbeat or something like that. So I'll set that to none. So 3 important things: turn off loop, turn on warping, bring the volume down, and set the quantization to none. And if you are better at math than me, that would be 4, right? So those are 4 different things. All right, so there's that clip. Maybe I could rename this, right? Because that name might be a bit controversial. Let's just call this audio AUDIO looper, right? Okay, so I think the Ableton community calls these clips dummy clips because it doesn't do anything or doesn't make any sound. But dummy is kind of a bad name for something like this because it does a lot actually. Right, a regular clip is more of a dummy than this clip because a regular clip you launch it, it makes noise. That's what it's supposed to do. But if you have a so-called dummy clip over here, it's doing so many other things as you'll find out
Like
once
a
I
professor
demonstrate
clip
it.
or something.
Professor clip, yeah. Okay, where was I? So we have this Bink Looper. So how this works is there are a bunch of different features here. The idea is not to click on it and activate these things because we want hands-free performance, right? So the idea is to automate this stuff, kind of like automation. You know, if you've made music in any DAW, you know about automation. So we're going to like pre-program automation, and we're going to trigger that audio looper clip that I have, which has the automation, and the automation will trigger all the various aspects of the looper, Bink Looper. So how do we do that? So if I double click the audio looper little clip here, and if I click on this little icon, this is the envelopes box. If I click that, now this new thing appears over here, and we can do all kinds of automation. Right now it's showing us clip stuff, so volume, transposition, all these things. But we want to automate Bink Looper stuff. So I'll select Bink Looper, and these are all the different aspects of Bink Looper that I can automate. So let's now take a look at the device itself. So now what can you do? This very first option over here, this is called the scene selector. So I have this clip sitting over here. When everything is set up, when I hit the play button to trigger this, it's going to trigger recording on the same track. It can't trigger it on a different track. So that's good. But which scene is it going to trigger? We have all these empty scenes, right? So that is defined over here, right? So if I pick scene 1, it'll start recording over here. If I pick scene 2, it'll start recording on scene 2. So definitely do not pick the scene in which you have the clip itself because it can't record onto itself. It might, I don't know what will happen. You can try it, but on your own free time, not on my time. All right. So set this back to 1. So basically any clip slot that is empty, right? That doesn't have an existing clip. All right. So I've set that to 1, the scene selector. Now this thing over here, this is also pretty awesome. So let's say, that's my mic. Okay. Which one was... I want to set it to, because my ukulele has a mic in it, so it also captures my voice. I was wondering, like, why is it capturing my voice? But anyway, so let's say in a live performance scenario, this scenario where you have a track already armed and we're hearing all this nonsense, you talking or whatever. You don't want to hear that. You only want to activate that track or arm that track when you start playing, yeah? And you can do that with the Bink Looper. Right. So again, imagine thinking about Bink Beats, the guy, his performance, he has 32 different inputs. Imagine all of them are armed already. It's gonna be a huge mess. So you can choose, all right, this is the track that I want to record on right now, and it's gonna be armed at this particular moment. There's some comments, so maybe if Claire can look at those.
Yeah, totally. Someone was just asking about the replay. So yes, everyone, this will be available for replay after. It's going to be on YouTube. So yeah, feel free to pop over to that link that I put in the chat already again. So yay. Thanks.
Cool. All right. So this next option is basically one option, but you get 3 sub options, all relating to the arm. You notice when I click on this, when it's set to off, the track is no longer armed. When I set to on, the track gets armed. Yeah. So I can basically arm the track directly from here. Right. Now reset, to be honest, I don't know what it does. If you read in the left, there's a little hint that tells you what it does. It says some workaround, something, but I haven't figured out like what it does. And I haven't had the need for it. Yeah. So the main thing with arming a track is you want it off or you want it on, right? So this is something we will automate in that audio looper clip. All right. So what else? This is probably the most important aspect of Bink Looper. So when I click this, it'll trigger the launching or recording of that clip slot in scene number 1, because I've set it to scene number 1. So we definitely need to automate that. Stop, we can do this as well. So you can decide, and I think Bink Looper does this as well. Bink Beats. His name is not Bink Looper. so Bink Beats.
It could very well be his name, I feel like, at this point.
Yeah. Well, technically, his name is probably not even Bink Beats. He probably has a normal name. But anyways, that's his stage name. Anyway, stop. So what can you do with stop? So what you can do is, let's say you're doing a really complex performance where you want to play something in real time, and Ableton will record it, but not loop it. It's just sitting there. Right? And then you move on to something else, and you move on to something else. And then later on, you can choose to like launch it and just hit the play button. So that's kind of cool. I always thought, like, why do we need a stop button, right? So I could just not loop it. But this can be really great to incorporate in a live performance where everybody's getting fascinated by your live looping. Like, oh, I heard him play that, and I was just playing on its own. But imagine this. You play something, and then people don't hear it at all. And then afterwards, as you build your arrangement, people hear that thing that you played earlier, and then the audience will be like, oh, I remember that he played that earlier, and now we're hearing it in the arrangement. So that's kind of cool. So yeah, so there's a feature where you can choose to record something and not loop it. Yeah, so you can automate that if you want to. Delete. I find delete, again, when I first look at it, why do I need to delete stuff, right? But delete is helpful. So let's say you made a mistake, right? So you did something in real time and you realize it's incorrect. Do it again and it'll delete that, whatever was recorded earlier, right? Instead of doing undo and all that stuff. So we can use this as well, and I'll demonstrate this as well. Quantize, this is also very cool. So I'm going to do audio recording, and as you all probably know, in Ableton Live, you can even quantize audio. But one real huge bummer with the quantize is that you can't automate this. In other words, you can't set it up beforehand. Everything I'm going to show you is going to be set up beforehand. So I'll set it up and then just launch the clip, and I'm just playing and it's getting looped. But quantize, you have to do it afterwards. So you record something and then you hit the quantize button, which kind of sucks, but yeah, we can do that as well. You can quantize audio. But of course, if it was a MIDI track, you can also do the same thing. But as I said, unfortunately, you can't prepare your quantize beforehand, right? Like that auto quantize that Ableton has, a lot of DAWs have that. You can't set that up beforehand. Cool. Now loop length. Now here we have to define, okay, Bink Looper is asking us, okay, you're going to play something, but how long do you want to play before I start to, play back what you just performed? So here I'll define this. Now it's not in bars, it's in beats. If you notice, if I leave my cursor there, it says loop length. No, it doesn't say it. It says it over here, but trust me, it's in beats. And you can see in the help tag, it says it's in beats. So what does that mean? So if you're in 4/4, 4 beats will be 1 bar. If it's if you want 2 bars, set it to 8. So you just have to know how to count, right? So if it's in 4/4, I think the reason why he set it up like this, because he does not work in 4/4 exclusively. So I think in his demo, he did like some 11/8 thing. So if I want like 11 beats and I want to repeat 11 beats, we can set that up here. I don't. I want to be in 4/4, so I'll do 2 bars of 4/4, so I'll leave that at 8. Now, delay is very cool. We'll leave that for later. So I'll just do a quick demo on this. This stuff is just, you can't click on it. All right, so we need to set up the arming. So in my clip over here, I'm going to automate the arming. So it's going to arm it automatically when I launch that clip, and then it's going to maybe delete first. Delete, if anything was there, it's going to delete the previous clip, and then it's going to launch the recording process. And then after 8 beats or after 2 bars in 4/4, it's going to play back that thing. Now, little disclaimer, this is a free device made by, just indie developer, I guess you can call them that. So it's not perfect. There are no updates, release every few months or anything like that. So it might be a little buggy. I remember when I first started, it just wouldn't do what it's supposed to do. And if I remove the device and add it again, it would do what it's supposed to do. So you just have to kind of live with that. But I did a little test earlier, right before the session, and it was smooth, no hiccups at all. So hopefully it'll be the same right now in my demonstration. All right, so I don't have to play yet. I need to set up the automation. Yeah. So let's go into that clip here. Now the timing is important. Yeah. So what happens first? So maybe the first thing I want to do is delete whatever is on that clip, slot. So over here. So in this envelope section, you click over here to open the envelope section. You choose the device that's there. Whatever device is on the track will appear over here, yeah? So if you don't have Bink Looper, you won't see that there. We have Bink Looper, so we see it over here. And then in this second menu, we see all the options that you can automate. So the first thing is delete. I see delete here. So let's go ahead and create that automation. I'm going to turn off the grid. Command 4 will turn off the grid because, again, it's not in time. I just want to turn off a feature. So I'm going to zoom in a bit here. I guess you can click and drag like that. And I want to be fairly quick, right? As soon as I click that button, I want to activate these features. So this is the line for delete, because delete is selected. It just says value 1, but value 1 is off. And if I click and drag upwards, value 2 is on, right? So it's going to trigger the deleting of any clip that's on that particular clip slot. All right, so that's done first. Maybe you can get it even closer to the beginning. Yeah, if my hands are... There you go. So delete is done. Next thing I want to do is arm the track, right? So because we want to record this, let's arm the track. It's off right now. Click and drag upwards. It's set to on. If you click downwards, there's also that reset thing, which I said, like, I don't know what it does, so we can ignore that. So first we delete, then we arm the track, and then the most important thing is to launch. And this needs to happen afterwards. Yeah, you can't launch the recording before you arm the track, and that's not going to work. And I learned the the hard way, right? So I was like, why is this not recording? Then I realized, oh, I'm recording before I even, arm the track. So make sure. So it's hard to see in Ableton Live. Unfortunately, you can't see multiple automation parameters. I don't think so. In this view, in session view, I don't think you can see multiple things simultaneously. Maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, if you look through it, so arm is happening approximately here. Delete is happening earlier. And then launch is happening over here. Yeah, so as long as launch is a bit later, we're good. And it's pretty quick because I zoomed in here, right? So if you look at this, that's the first beat, right? The first quarter note. So that's pretty quick. All right, so I think it's all set up and we should be good to go. Now I need to launch. So I do need to use my hands for triggering that clip, yeah? So I need to hit a button to trigger that clip, and then it's going to do everything, yeah? So what I do is, even if you don't have a MIDI controller, you can just use your computer keyboard, right? So I have the computer keyboard here, fancy wireless one. There's some more comments in there. So let's say I want to do a keyboard mapping. Up top here, there's a keyboard mapping feature. I'll select this clip because that's the one I want to trigger, and just tap any button on my keyboard. Let's see, what shall we pick? Let's say M. Right, so I tap M. It sees that I've tapped M, and that's going to trigger slot 8. Cool. All right, I think we should be good now. So let me just check if we're getting sound. Oh, because the track is not on. So yeah, let's see how it goes. So what I'll do is I'll play the beat. So we have that running in the background, and then I'll just tap the little the button that I've mapped. And so make sure you turn off your virtual keyboard thingy, because that'll come in the way of these keyboard mappings. So that is off. Let's play. Give it some reverb. Sure, why not? Okay, so there we go. So we are facing our first issue here. So it did record, but it did not loop it. So you see over here, something happened and it did not. Let me try this again. Delete that. So I guess I'll have to troubleshoot. I've noticed in the past that the best way to fix this is to just delete the device and load it in again. But let me just do it without playing and see if it works. So I'll trigger, hit M to trigger the thing. It is recording. And after 2 bars, it stops recording. Why did it not record the ukulele? Let's find out. So let me just double check. Delete is there. Launch arm. Maybe let's move arm a bit later. I don't know if that'll help. Let's try it one more time. So I'll play. Let me arm myself just to make sure that I am getting sound. Okay, cool. It is working. So I want to demonstrate the whole automatic arming thing, because just to show you that it could work. Let's try it one more time. Yeah, so it is giving me trouble. But that's the process, all right? So even though it's not working at all, that is the process. You can see it recorded a bit, and it has something to do with when you trigger what. So just to save myself face, let's disable the recording thing, the arming thing, and let's see if it gets by without me doing the manual arm. Okay, so I'll get rid of this because for some reason it's not working. It might be that reset thing, but I don't know. All right, let's get rid of that. So I'm not going to arm it. Let's see if it happens this time. So I don't have.
Shop, sorry, we had a super quick question. Maybe I'll just do this before we cool.
Sure.
So Maya was asking, what's the point of this as opposed to creating a clip and making a loop, which is so easy? Is it like an external trigger? And I think to this point, Maya, I'm not sure if you've seen Bink Beats before, but if you see him, you'll kind of know why this is necessary. But Rishab, if you want to take the question.
As in, I didn't get it. Why is this necessary to do in real time?
So like, what is the point of doing this as opposed to just creating a clip and making a loop in the normal way that we use session view?
Probably it'll make sense if I could demonstrate the whole thing to just demonstrate how we can go through the whole pattern. So the idea is I want to be able to play a particular part, and then immediately after, without hitting any button, I want to play another part. Right, so let's say I play a chord progression first, and then I play a melody, and immediately after I want to play a counter melody, and immediately after I want to play something else, and I want all these layers to just run, on their own without me having to hit a button. So that's mainly the purpose for like a live performance, because sure, you can do this offline. You can like hit stop, hit record, stop again, rewind, do all that stuff. But if when you're performing live, it doesn't look good. That's more like a production thing. When you're performing live, you just want to perform, right? So that, I would say, that's the main purpose of going through all this nonsense. But you know what? Let me try this, because I've noticed this helped in the past. I'll delete the device and load it in again. It sounds stupid, but let's try that. Let's see if my automation is still there. May have to write in the automation again. Yeah, all the automation is gone. So let's see if I can do this again. I'll do the launch, select the launch, set that up there. And right before, maybe you want to delete whatever is on that clip slot. So let's do something like that. Oops. So yeah, it is kind of tedious, a lot of setup involved, but it's worth it, right? Because once you see the thing in action, like what is possible with it, it's kind of worth it. So delete, launch. Let's do ARM. I don't know if ARM was the culprit, but let's do ARM as well. See if that works. So I'll set ARM on. So it should automatically ARM without me having to click on ARM over here. Okay, so I have, again, just to verify, zoom in here again. I have ARMed the track. I've deleted whatever was on that clip slot, and I've launched much later. I've launched, maybe you can get this a bit earlier. Yeah, I will launch the recording of the clip slot. All right, so fingers crossed. Let's see if it happens again this time.
You can do it, yes.
All right. My MIDI mapping should still work, I believe. Yeah. Cool, it's working, but what's not working is I did not define the length, right? Because I removed the device and I loaded it in again. So let's say eight beats, yeah? So this time it was recording, it was just going on. I was like, why are you still recording? You should be playing it back, because I forgot that I did not set up the loop length. Now, once you set it, it's a lot of setup involved. So once you set it up, you can save all these things. You can even save a clip, because this clip is important because it has all this automation stuff. So once it works, save the clip, and then you can reuse it for your other sessions and stuff like that. All right, so I have a feeling it's going to work. So I'm going to disarm the track, and let's try it again. Hit play. Yeah, so the previous recording is still there, but you notice once I hit that button that I mapped, it'll delete the previous recording and let me add in whatever new things I want to add. All right, cool. So let's do this. Finally, it works, right? So done. Okay, so again, I forget what the name of that person was. You'd be like, really? So all that 20 minutes to just do that? But hang on, let me show you what else you can do. So that was one loop I recorded. So in here we have this particular loop, and now I want to add like a melody or something on top of it. So I'm going to set up this track to have that same input number 1. And let's just copy, because this version of the device is working. So I just option drag this over here. So we have the same exact device. And let's also copy the clip over here. Right, so it has all the same automation and stuff like that. Where is it? Bink Looper. Yeah, there you go. All the same automation is there. So like this, you can set up 4, 5, 32 different tracks and have all these things running simultaneously. To save time, what I'll do now is to show you a cool feature. Now, if I was to do this, I now will have to MIDI map. I'll have to go into or keyboard map this clip, let's say, to another button like N. Okay, let me quickly show you how this would work. So let's get out of keyboard mapping, and so I'll delete this just myself, but we saw that delete works, so that should be fine. I'll disarm the track, play. So I'll do the first layer by hitting the M key. Right, so that's done. Now I want to do the second one, so I'll hit N, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so like that you can kind of build layers. But what's really cool is, okay, so here I had to hit that N for the second layer. So for every subsequent track, I have to get my hands off the instrument and tap one button, right? But you can reduce it to no buttons, right? You just have to trigger the first looper, and all subsequent loopers can be automatically triggered. So how that works is, so the one feature that I didn't talk about yet is delay. So on the second looper, what I can do is I can set a delay of 8 beats. So when I trigger this looper, it's going to wait for 8 beats. It's going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then it's going to start recording for 8 beats. Let's say I have a third track. Let me just duplicate this entire track, right? Easy. So let's rename this. So this one is 1, this one is 2, this one is 3. Right, so you have 3 different tracks. So now we don't even need to MIDI map. Yeah, I guess we don't need this at all. Yeah, I'll leave it there, but I'm not going to trigger it. All I'm going to do is trigger this one, right? So when I trigger the first one, we'll record on the first clip start here. Bink Looper will immediately play it back, and then after 8 beats, because there's a delay here, the second Bink Looper is going to start recording for 8 beats, and then it'll loop that back. And then the third Bink Looper, I have to set that to, what is it, 8 plus 8 plus 8. Oh no, 8 plus 8, so 16, right? Let me know if my math
16,
was wrong
yes.
there. Yeah, 16, yeah, thank you. So yeah, so that's set to 16, and everything else is identical, so it should work. Let's hopefully, again, see if that works. So I'll delete this myself. Oh, you know what, let's leave it. Let Bink Looper delete for me. So I'm just going to trigger M, that first clip recording, and the other ones will automatically trigger, yeah? After 2 bars, so just count 2 bars. All right, so I'm ready now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Great, it didn't do it. Okay, let's find out why did it not do it.
Yay!
Oh, here's another thing I forget. Long process. So what's happening here is that I triggered the first one, but I never triggered the second or the third, right? So I still need to trigger them, but all at the same time.
Well, I
Right,
think
so I don't have
key
to
mapping,
wait.
Rishabh?
Yeah,
Or-
key mapping. Sorry, I wasn't MIDI mapping. So I don't need to use another key. I'll just use the same. So set them all to M. Sorry, what am I doing? Yeah, set this to M, set this also to M. So all 3 will trigger at the exact same time, but the second one will wait for 8 beats. Let's get out of the key map mode. The second one will wait for 8 beats and then start recording. The third one will wait for 16 beats and then start recording.
Which
Right, so
I think you changed the loop length and not the loop delay on the third one.
did I do
Yeah.
that?
Yes.
Wait, sorry, the third one, loop length. Oh yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. It's good to have people who know more than me watching. Cool. All right, so that should be correct. So delay of 16 beats. So it's going to wait for 16 beats. Let's look at this theoretically again. So first looper, I'll trigger all of them. The first one immediately starts recording, no delay, records 8 beats, basically records 2 bars. The second one, while that one was triggered, also gets triggered, but it waits for 8 beats because it has a delay. It then records 8 beats or 2 bars. The third one will also trigger at the same time as the first one, but it'll wait for 16 beats, and then it'll record 2 bars, right? So, all right, let's see if that works. Yeah, and if it works, you can keep going on and on and on, right? So you can have like a really long collection of live loop layers without having to like stop performing. All right. Worked. Yeah, so so that's basically it. Despite all the troubles, so as I said, it's kind of tedious. It's like this, free plugin has some bugs. It's kind of good that you guys saw the issues with it. So as you noticed, I removed the device, loaded it in again. But one thing I've noticed is if you save your session, quit out of live, open it again, you won't encounter these issues again. Yeah, so at least in my experience. So that's a little bit about using the Bink Looper for live performance.
Awesome. Thanks, Rashab. We actually did have some questions and also some hellos from fellow CTs. We have a hello from Ben and Laura, Ben Ang and Laura Esquire.
Cool,
They say
cool,
hi.
awesome. Hello, hello.
And they actually do have a couple of questions. So Ben was asking, he doesn't mind if it doesn't work, but has it ever crashed live while you were using it?
That's strange to say. You don't mind that it doesn't work? Okay. No, it hasn't. It hasn't crashed. I've
Awesome,
never had a
awesome.
crash issue. I just had issues that it just doesn't work.
Yeah, same for me as well. I have so far. I haven't experimented with it that much too, but it hasn't crashed live so far for me. So at least for the Max for Live part, it seems pretty stable. And Laura kind of
Yeah.
made like a related comment that was like, "Can you imagine if this didn't work for big beats at loop?" in 2018. Yeah.
Yeah. But then his sessions are probably already set up. So he opens an existing session and he just starts performing. So that probably might be the key there. Or you know what? It might be this reset thing. I have no idea what this reset thing does. Maybe if I ever get to meet him, I'll ask him like, what is reset, man? What's going on here? Like, why does it not work? But yeah.
Yeah,
Good fun.
totally. I think that also does relate to another question that came in the chat also. If it's that buggy to perform, how could you trust it to perform? And I think what you said, Rishab, was pretty much true. I think for Bink Beats, at least, since he was the one who created it, he probably has like tested it and ran it through a bunch of times and not just like pulling it out of somebody else's toolkit and then trying to learn to use it like the rest of us are kind of thing a
Yeah,
little
that's
bit.
true. It's
So-
it's customized for his setup, like what he does, right? So it's specifically for him. And also to expand on that, like that this instrument here, right? Isn't this also kind of buggy? Like it could go out of tune, strings could snap, right? Guitars, other things can go wrong. Like you're singing, I don't know, maybe your voice cracks in the middle of the performance. Many things could happen with, regular instruments. So yeah, why not accept the fact that these instruments also have those same issues? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. We also had a couple of more questions from Laura actually. Laura was asking, what did you change about the Bink Looper? She remembers something about you modifying it.
No, I didn't modify anything. What do you mean
Okay,
by
cool.
modify it? As in like change the actual device itself?
Not super sure. Just relaying the question. But Laura, if you're out there, if you could clarify what you mean by the modification, that would be awesome.
And also,
But
I can't
yeah.
modify things. I don't know how to. so this is exactly the exact same download from binkbeats. I forget the name of the website. Download it as is, and yeah, no modifications whatsoever.
Yeah, I think it's binkbeats.com. That's his main website. And then he has a bunch of other links where people can go to download devices.
Yeah.
But there's also a follow-up question. Rashab, do you ever use CliffX at all?
Oh, CliffX, yeah. CliffX definitely can do a lot more. Right. In fact, CliffX can almost do everything, and it's a very, very deep program, and I wouldn't say I know it that well. I know of it. I've used it a little bit, but yeah, CliffX is a good alternative to this. But CliffX is not free. It's not expensive. I think like $30-40. But yeah, if you just want a quick little thing with the reason I use this is because at Berkeley I teach live looping, so I don't want students to have to spend money just to attend my class because they've already spent money on Ableton Live. Maybe they already have a push, and then now they have to spend another $40-50. So I'd rather just use something that's freely available. But yeah, if you can spend money, CliffX Pro is fantastic for all this and much more.
Cool, awesome. Does anyone have any extra questions? Let me just pop over into the chat. Ooh. No, looks like we're good. But thank you so much, Rashab. This was really crazy. I think everyone's mind got kind of blown a little bit.
Mine too.
Yeah, no, totally. I think we're all also like holding our breaths and hoping that would work.
It would work.
Like, oh
please
gosh,
work.
here we go. Oh gosh. But
Yeah.
yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This would
Should
be a
stop
really
sharing.
great. Yeah. Oh yes, thank you. Thanks so much, everyone. I'm gonna head back over into gallery mode and show everyone as well. But yay, thanks everyone for joining us. Thank you to the friends who joined us on YouTube. Thank you. And also thank you to our friends in the chat over here and on Zoom as well. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Big thanks to Illicit Ghost and Andres Leon and Rishab Rajan for presenting tonight. Thanks so much, everyone. I'm going to unmute the hosts for tonight just to say some thank yous. And also, if we could just take a minute to thank everyone at 343 Labs, particularly Thomas, who is managing the stream and setting it up. Thanks, Thomas, for having all of us and for managing that too. Again, the Ableton user group is usually organized by 343 Labs. We're a school in Manhattan. We have some upcoming courses. Is there a specific website that people can go to, Thomas, to check out our upcoming courses that we have?
Sure, I'll put a link for that in the Zoom chat as well as YouTube.
Awesome.
Just see the courses that are coming up.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, thanks, Thomas. And yeah, if anyone does want to check out other events that we have, though we have lots of stuff going around at 343 Labs, you can head over to our events page at 343 Labs. So the numbers 343labs.com/events. to check out our upcoming events. You can also tune in next month for the July Ableton Music Group. We're also going to be hosting it as well. And right now, for the month of June, we are having 343 TV, which is almost like a little bit of a TV series that we have with our 343 Labs instructors hosting a couple of things. I do a weekly show on Mondays that's called Tips and Tricks at I think it's 1 p.m. EST. So that's EDT rather. So that's something that you can look forward to, and we have daily programming throughout all of the weeks. Otherwise, once again, thank you so much everyone for tuning in. We really appreciate you sharing. Thank you to Rashab and Andres who are in Zoom with us, and Illicit Ghost who's over on YouTube. Thanks everyone, and we will see you all soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.